If you find three wonderful businesses in your life, you'll get very rich.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Dr. Kenyon Hackworth from Healthy You, Wealthy You, back again with another video for you. Make sure you hit that like button and hit subscribe so you can be alert of all the new videos that I drop, and hit the notification bell and leave a comment below so we can see exactly what the rationale and what videos you would like to hear more about. Now, when you ask most people what is the key for successful investing, a lot of professionals will say diversification. You have to be diversified. Make sure you're diversification. So before I get into my take, I'm going to read this little passage from Common Stocks and Uncommon Profits by Philip A. Fisher, one of my favorite books of all times. He says, don't overstress diversification. No investment principle is more widely acclaimed than diversification. Some cynics have hinted that this is because the concept is so simple that even stockbrokers can understand it. Be that as it may, there was very little chance of the average investor being influenced to practice insufficient diversification. The horrors of what can happen to those who put all their eggs in one basket are too constantly being expounded. Now, this book was written in 1958. So the same things that were said back then are still being said today. Too few people, however, give sufficient thought to the evils of the other extreme. This is the disadvantage of having eggs in so many baskets that a lot of the eggs do not end up in really attractive baskets, and it is impossible to keep watching all the baskets after the eggs get put into them. Investors have been so oversold on diversification that fear of having too many eggs in one basket has caused them to put far too little into companies they thoroughly know and far too much in others about which they know nothing at all. It never seems to them, or never seems to occur to them, much less to their advisors, that buying a company without having sufficient knowledge of it may be even more dangerous than having inadequate diversification. See, the objective should be to identify and own the great businesses, the outstanding businesses. That's what Philip Fisher talks about in this book over and over again. Look to find and buy only the outstanding businesses, and then you can stick with them through thick and thin. Don't be a victim of what Peter Lynch called diversification. Diversification is you just finding, in the sake or in the name of diversification, you're putting your money into all these different businesses or different assets just to say, oh, I'm diversified. But if you diversify into poorly performing assets, you are going to have a poorly performing portfolio. If you have a group of really good assets that perform at a high level, then your portfolio is going to perform at a high level. Your investments can only perform in aggregate as a whole how they perform individually and with everything being put together. So you want to find the good ones and don't overstress what it is to be diversified and how you're putting so much money in so many different places in the name of diversification that you're not choosing really truly attractive assets that can really grow and compound your money. That's what's really important. How does your money compound? And it compounds better by being in great investments, not being overly diversified. An example is if you take a look at Home Depot and Lowe's. Let's say you invested $20,000 in each way back in 1986. I know a lot of people, before you get into nobody had 20,000. Just follow me here for a second. Let's say you invested $20,000, 10,000 each in Home Depot and Lowe's. Now those companies, people will say they aren't really diversified because they're in a similar field, but they both lead their perspective, their field. So if you invested $20,000 and you did absolutely nothing but just let the money grow and let it compound, that $20,000 in 1986, 37 years later today, would be worth $25 million because it compounded at almost 21% a year. Now, if those were the only two businesses that you own, how much diversification did you need? They were great businesses. So the objective is to identify the great businesses that you can buy and that you can own. And on top of that, last year you would have received $524,847 in dividend income by doing nothing but absolutely owning the businesses, just putting $10,000 in each and just letting the money compound. Compounding is your friend. Time plus the power of compounding is your friend. The objective is to own great businesses.
Put a lot of money in things that we feel strongly about, and that gets back to the diversification question. We think diversification is, as practiced generally, makes very little sense for anyone that knows what they're doing. Diversification is a protection against ignorance. I mean, if you want to make sure that nothing bad happens to you relative to the market, you own everything. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that is a perfectly sound approach for somebody who does not feel they know how to analyze businesses. If you know how to analyze businesses and value businesses, it's crazy to own 50 stocks or 40 stocks or 30 stocks probably, because there aren't that many wonderful businesses that are understandable to a single human being in all likelihood, and to have some super wonderful business and then put money in number 30 or 35 on your list of attractiveness and forego putting more money into number 1 just strikes Charlie and me as madness. And it's conventional practice, and it may, if all you have to achieve is average, it may preserve your job, but it's a confession in our view that you don't really understand the businesses that you own. On a personal portfolio basis, I own one stock, but it's a business I know, and it leaves me very comfortable. So, do I need to own 28 stocks in order to, have proper diversification? It'd be nonsense. And within Berkshire, I could pick out 3 of our businesses, and I would be very happy if they were the only businesses we owned and I had all my money in Berkshire. Now, I love the fact that we can find more than that and that we keep adding to it. But 3 wonderful businesses is more than you need in this life to do very well. And the average person isn't going to run into that. I mean, if you look at how the fortunes were built in this country, they weren't built out of a portfolio of 50 companies. They were built by someone who identified with a wonderful business. Coca-Cola is a great example. A lot of fortunes have been built on that. And there aren't 50 Coca-Colas. There aren't 20. If there were, it'd be fine. We could all go out and diversify like crazy among that group and get results that would be equal to owning the really wonderful one. But you're not going to find it. And the truth is, you don't need it. I mean, if you have a really wonderful business, is very well protected against the vicissitudes of the economy over time and the competition. I mean, we're talking about businesses that are resistant to effective competition, and 3 of those will be better than 100 average businesses, and they'll be safer, incidentally. I mean, there is less risk in owning 3 easy-to-identify wonderful businesses than there is in owning 50 well-known big businesses. And it's amazing what has been taught over the years in finance classes about that. But I can assure you that I would rather pick, if I had to bet the next 30 years on the fortunes of my family that would be dependent upon the income from a given group of businesses, I would rather pick 3 businesses from those we own than own a diversified group of 50.